in every circumstance. You are Jireh, you are enough. Standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day, when I saw that hearse come rolling for to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
As most of you already know, I'm Kade Bowman, and I'll be delivering the sermon this morning. I would first like to thank Holly for all that she's done and helped us out with. From setting up practice to supplying food, thank you for so much. Thank you so much for everything. This is actually the first time I've been talking up here for any occasion, so let's hope this goes well enough so that I can be up here again. As I was thinking of what to talk about, several stories from the Bible came to mind. I've always been interested in the miracles that Jesus performed, and since they put out the TV show The Chosen, it brought a lot of those to life. One that always stood out to me was in Mark chapter 4. If you want to open your Bibles to Mark 4:35, or you can look on the screen. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." So Jesus had been preaching all day and wanted the disciples to rent a boat. Where was I? To rent a boat so that he could rest before he preached again the next day. On their way across the lake, it started pouring rain. The waves started getting higher and higher, and the rain started pouring harder and harder. The disciples asked Jesus, "Don't you care? We're going to drown." Jesus woke up and said, "Be still." The disciples and the waves and the rain and the waves died down. The disciples all had trouble understanding who Jesus was, but I think this moment, along with others, helped them realize helped open their eyes to who he really was. The thing about the disciples is their small faith. They watched Jesus perform almost every miracle he ever did, and they still couldn't grasp the full realization that he was the Son of God. They thought that Jesus was asleep, but he knew exactly what was going on. We have to remember that even when it seems that God's asleep, and doesn't hear us, he's still there, always listening to our prayers. This verse also shows that we must surrender to God for him to calm our storms. The storm in this verse can be issues in our lives such as financial issues, relationships, and problems at work or school that we need God's help with. Maybe these issues themselves won't go away, but God will give us the peace and guidance to handle these problems. Just because we follow Jesus doesn't mean these storms won't come up in our lives. As Jesus said in John 16:33, I've told you these things so that you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. Being a Christian doesn't mean you'll have a luxurious life. Some of the most faithful people in the Bible were hated and killed for their beliefs. John the Baptist was beheaded by King Herod. John was sent to be isolated on an island where, fun fact, he wrote Revelation. Peter and a few other disciples were crucified too. When we have these troubles, we have to cry out to God to help us. James 4:7 says, submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. The surrendering this verse talks about isn't admitting defeat after a long battle, or just completely giving up. It's telling God that we will give our lives to him, to be a willing servant. Jesus talked about surrendering to God a lot. Mark 8:34-35 states, then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. We can't give half of ourselves to God and still do what we want to do some of the time, listen to God for the other half. We must fully listen and obey for him to help us. Jesus has power over everything, and nothing is impossible to him, but we must be willing to surrender to him for him to calm our storms. But how do we become willing servants of God? Galatians 2:20 says, I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. As many of you know, one of my all-time favorite bands is a band called Stryper. If you don't know who they are, they're a Christian rock band who I'm actually seeing live for the first time in July. For more information, talk to PD in the back. So they have a song called Surrender. And the chorus of the song goes like this. Oh, Jesus Christ is the lover of your soul, and he wants to give you all you need. So freely surrender, open up unto his majesty. This song pretty much sums up what I just told you about surrendering to Christ. You must open up unto his majesty, or open up your heart to God, so that he can give you all you need. The disciples followed Jesus onto the boat because they trusted him. Following him in daily lives like this can help stop worry so that we can look ahead to reuniting with him in heaven. One tip that I can give is when you go through something hard, look back at all that God blessed you with during that hard time, and it will increase your faith. In closing, we must remember that through all the storms we face, if we'll let God into our heart and cry out when we need him, he'll always give us the peace to walk through the hard times, and we'll never be alone. If you feel like you don't have this peace, when we have the altar call in a little bit, I encourage you to come forward and surrender to him. The end.